The emergency sirens on Station Nexus 7 weren't supposed to sound like that. The wailing pitch meant only one thing across the entire galaxy, and it made every alien species freeze in absolute terror. A void dreadworm was coming. Ambassador Vrek's multiple eyes widened as he stared at the scanner display in the council chamber. The massive blip on the screen was moving straight toward their station, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. His four-fingered hands trembled as he slammed the evacuation button. Around him, the other council members from a dozen different worlds started panicking, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and translated shouts. These creatures were the stuff of nightmares. 50 meters long from snout to tail, covered in scales so black they seemed to absorb light itself. Their wings could span the length of a small spacecraft, and their breath wasn't just fire. It was superheated plasma that could melt through the reinforced hull of a battleship in seconds. Worse still, they were territorial beyond reason. If a dreadworm decided your space station was in its way, your space station ceased to exist. There was no negotiating, no reasoning, no mercy. The station's computer announced in its calm, infuriating voice that evacuation would take approximately 47 minutes. Vrek knew they didn't have 47 minutes. They'd be lucky to have 20. Thousands of beings were about to die, and there wasn't a single thing he could do about it except watch it happen. Down in the lower habitat rings, where families lived in modest quarters overlooking the stars, 6-year-old Tommy Blake was having the best day of his life. His parents had brought him to this amazing space station while they worked on some boring research project about alien plants. But Tommy didn't care about plants. He cared about the incredible view from their apartment window, where he could see actual spaceships coming and going, and sometimes even catch glimpses of the swirling nebula in the distance. The sirens started screaming, and Tommy's mom grabbed his hand tight. Too tight. It hurt a little, but he didn't complain because she looked scared, and his mom never looked scared. His dad was shouting something about getting to the evacuation pods, and suddenly everyone in their hallway was running. But Tommy saw something through the big observation window at the end of the corridor. Something massive and dark was gliding through space toward the station. It had wings. Huge, leathery wings that caught the light from the nearby star. Tommy had seen pictures of dragons in his storybooks back on Earth, and this looked exactly like a dragon except it was in space and it was real. His mom's grip loosened for just a second as she turned to talk to his dad about which evacuation route to take. That was all Tommy needed. He slipped his small hand free and ran toward the window. Behind him, his parents' voices called out, but the crowd of fleeing aliens swept them in the opposite direction. Tommy pressed his face against the cool glass, watching in wonder as the space dragon got closer and closer. It was beautiful. Terrifying, sure, but beautiful in the way a thunderstorm is beautiful. Tommy could see every detail as it approached. The scales that overlapped like armor. The eyes that glowed with an inner fire. The claws that dug into the station's outer hull with a screech of tearing metal that Tommy could feel vibrating through the floor. The observation deck started to depressurize with a hiss, and emergency bulkheads began sliding into place. Tommy found himself in an empty docking bay. Everyone else had fled to the evacuation zones. He was alone, except he wasn't alone at all. The dreadworm tore through the reinforced bay doors like they were tissue paper. Metal shrieked and twisted. Sparks showered down in a waterfall of orange light. The creature's head pushed through, followed by its massive shoulders and wings. It was even bigger up close than Tommy had imagined. Its breath came out in visible waves of heat that made the air shimmer. Every species in the known galaxy had the same information in their survival databases. Approach a dreadworm and you die. Run from a dreadworm and you die slightly slower. These weren't animals that could be reasoned with. They were forces of nature like black holes or supernovas. You didn't fight them. You didn't negotiate with them. You just died. But Tommy noticed something the galaxy's databases had apparently missed. The dragon's left wing had a huge tear in the membrane, and dark fluid dripped from the wound. Its movements were slower than they should be. The creature looked exhausted, the way Tommy's old dog Max used to look after he got into that fight with the neighbor's cat. This wasn't a monster coming to destroy the station. This was a hurt animal looking for somewhere safe to land. Tommy had helped his dad bandage Max's cuts. His mom had taught him how to be gentle with injured creatures. This was just the same thing except much, much bigger. The dreadworm's glowing eyes locked onto Tommy. The small human child stood perfectly still, no fear in his expression. Just curiosity. Just concern. The dragon's head tilted slightly, confused by this unprecedented response. Tommy took a step forward. Then another. His small sneakers made soft sounds against the metal floor of the docking bay. Somewhere far away, security cameras were broadcasting this moment across the entire station, but Tommy didn't know that. He only knew that the space dragon needed help and nobody else was there to give it. Tommy walked right up to the massive creature without hesitation. Every step echoed in the empty docking bay. The dreadworm's head was easily the size of his family's car back on Earth, maybe bigger. Its nostrils flared with each breath, sending out waves of heat that made Tommy's face feel like he was standing too close to a campfire. The dragon watched him with eyes that glowed like molten gold. These eyes had witnessed the death of stars, had seen entire fleets scatter in terror, had never once looked upon a creature that didn't immediately try to flee or fight. And now here was this tiny thing, barely tall enough to reach its lower jaw, walking toward it like they were old friends meeting at a park. Tommy reached out his hand slowly, the way his dad had taught him to approach strange dogs. Never make sudden movements. Let them sniff you first. Show them you're friendly. He doubted space dragons could smell the same way dogs did, but the principle seemed sound enough. His small fingers touched the dragon's snout just below its right eye. The scales were warm, almost hot to the touch, and smoother than he'd expected. They felt like touching river stones that had been sitting in the sun all day. The dreadworm went completely still. Not the stillness of a predator about to strike, but the stillness of something experiencing something entirely new and trying to understand it. Throughout the station, on every security monitor, thousands of aliens watched this impossible scene. Ambassador Vrek had his main eyes closed because he couldn't bear to watch the child die, but his smaller auxiliary eyes stayed open against his will. His tactical officer had stopped breathing entirely, which was impressive since his species needed to breathe every few seconds or pass out. Tommy examined the wound on the dragon's wing more closely. The tear was long and ragged, like something had slashed through the membrane. He could see the edges were inflamed, probably infected. That had to hurt a lot. Back home, when Max had cut his paw on broken glass, he'd whimpered and limped for days even with the bandages and medicine. "You're really hurt, aren't you?" Tommy said softly. His voice seemed impossibly small in the cavernous docking bay. "That looks like it hurts a lot. I'm sorry someone did this to you." The dreadworm's head lowered slightly. Its psychic senses, which could detect hostile intent from light years away, found absolutely nothing threatening about this small creature. No aggression. No fear. Just genuine concern and something else, something the dragon had never encountered in millions of years of existence. Kindness. Pure, simple kindness with no ulterior motive. Tommy remembered something his grandmother used to do when he was scared. Before she passed away last year, whenever Tommy had a nightmare or fell down and scraped his knee, she'd kiss his forehead and tell him everything would be okay. It always made him feel better, even when he was still hurting. The dragon needed that. Tommy could see it in those glowing eyes. So he did what felt natural. He stood on his tiptoes, reaching up as high as he could, and gently kissed the dragon right on its snout between those massive eyes. The entire galaxy seemed to stop breathing. The dreadworm's eyes widened. Its pupils dilated until they were huge black pools surrounded by thin rings of gold. A sound came from deep within its chest, a rumbling that vibrated through the floor, through the walls, through the very structure of the station. But it wasn't a growl. It wasn't the prelude to an attack. It was a purr. Xenobiologists across the station scrambled to their instruments, certain their equipment was malfunctioning. Dreadworms didn't purr. They didn't make contented sounds. They roared. They screamed. They unleashed sounds that shattered eardrums and cracked armor plating. But purring? That wasn't in any database, any research paper, any historical account spanning thousands of years. Yet here it was, happening in real time on every security feed. The galaxy's most feared predator was purring like an oversized cat because a 6-year-old human child had kissed it and said it would be okay. Tommy smiled, completely unaware he'd just rewritten everything the galaxy thought it knew about dreadworms. "See? You're a good dragon. I knew it." He patted the dragon's snout affectionately. "You're just scared and hurt, but it's okay now. I'll help you." The creature lowered its massive head further, resting it on the docking bay floor right in front of Tommy. The movement was deliberate, careful, almost gentle. The same head that had smashed through reinforced doors moments ago now moved with the delicacy of someone handling fine crystal. Tommy sat down cross-legged on the cold metal floor, right in front of the dragon's face. He started talking the way kids do about everything and nothing. He told the dragon about Earth, about his dog Max who died last year, about his favorite cartoon show, about how space stations were cool but he missed his backyard. And the dreadworm listened. It actually listened, its eyes focused on Tommy with an intensity that would have terrified anyone else but just made Tommy feel important. Someone was actually paying attention to him, not distracted by work or research or grown-up things. Ambassador Vrek finally found his voice. "Someone get me a xenopsychology team right now," he croaked into his communicator. "And someone find that child's parents. And someone explain to me what in the name of the founders I'm watching, because this should be impossible." His tactical officer managed to whisper, "Sir, the Dreadworm's psychic signature has changed. It's broadcasting protective patterns. Territorial claiming behavior." "It's claiming the station?" Vrek asked, dreading the answer. "No, sir. It's claiming the child." The security feed showed Tommy pulling a small emergency medical kit from a wall compartment. He opened it with the confidence of a kid who'd watched his parents patch up injuries dozens of times. He pulled out antiseptic wipes and bandaging material, completely inadequate for a wound that size, but he was trying. The dragon watched him work, its tail slowly curling around Tommy's small form. Not trapping him. Protecting him. The same way a mother might curl around her young. Across the galaxy, the footage spread like wildfire. Every news network, every military command, every research institution received the same impossible images. A human child kissing a void dreadworm. The dreadworm purring. The child treating its wounds while the creature watched with what could only be described as adoration. The galaxy would never be the same. It took Tommy's parents nearly 20 minutes to fight their way back through the panicked crowds. Robert Blake had practically carried his wife Lisa through 3 different evacuation zones, both of them screaming their son's name over the wailing sirens. When they finally reached the docking bay, what they saw made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Their 6-year-old son was sitting on the floor, legs crossed, chattering away to the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy. The dreadworm's massive head rested on the ground just inches from Tommy, its eyes half closed in what looked disturbingly like contentment. Tommy had somehow found medical supplies and was dabbing at the creature's wounded wing with antiseptic wipes that were comically inadequate for an injury that size. And then in the next episode, Tommy was saying, completely absorbed in his story, the hero gets a new power-up and he can shoot lasers from his hands. So cool. You'd like it? There's lots of flying and fighting bad guys. The dragon made a low rumbling sound that seemed to indicate it was listening. Its tail was curled protectively around Tommy, creating a barrier between the boy and the rest of the docking bay. Lisa tried to run forward, but Robert grabbed her arm. Something in his scientist brain was screaming that any sudden movement might shatter whatever impossible thing was happening here. The dreadworm's eyes snapped open fully, focusing on them with an intensity that made both parents freeze. "Tommy," Robert called out carefully, his voice shaking. "Tommy, buddy, can you come here please?" Tommy looked up and waved. "Oh, hi Dad. Hi Mom. Look, I made a new friend. He's hurt and he's really nice and I think he likes me." "That's wonderful, son," Robert said, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart. "But we need to go now. Can you come here?" Tommy frowned. "But I can't leave him. He's hurt. And I think he's lonely." Before either parent could respond, station security arrived. 6 armed guards in full tactical gear, their weapons trained on the dreadworm. The lead officer started barking orders about extracting the civilian and neutralizing the threat. That was a mistake. The dreadworm's head snapped up. Its lips pulled back, revealing teeth the size of fence posts. The sound that came from its throat wasn't a purr anymore. It was a growl that started somewhere deep in the Earth's core and climbed its way up through layers of primal fury. The very air seemed to vibrate. Viewports 3 decks away cracked from the resonance. The security team stumbled backward, their weapons suddenly seeming very small and inadequate. "Mine," the dragon's psychic voice boomed through every mind in range. It wasn't a word in any spoken language, but everyone understood it perfectly. The meaning was crystal clear. The child was under this creature's protection, and anyone who tried to take him would face consequences beyond imagination. Tommy stood up quickly, placing his small hand on the dragon's jaw. Hey, it's okay. They're my parents. They're nice. You don't have to be scary." He turned to the security team. "Can you please put your guns away? You're scaring him and he doesn't like it." The lead officer looked like he was about to argue, but Ambassador Vrek's voice crackled through his communicator. "Stand down. Everyone stand down right now. Do not threaten that creature while it's protecting the child." The guards lowered their weapons and backed away slowly. The dreadworm's growl faded to a low rumble, though its eyes never left them. Tommy patted its jaw again. "Good boy. See, everyone's being nice now." Up in the council chamber, Vrek had assembled every xenopsychology expert on the station. Dr. Patricia Moore, a human researcher specializing in Earth's domestication history, was reviewing the security footage for the 7th time. This is pack bonding, she explained to the assembled aliens. It's a human trait. We form emotional attachments with other species. It's how we turned wolves into dogs over thousands of years. How we domesticated cats, horses, birds. We see an animal, even a predator, and our first instinct isn't always fear. Sometimes it's affection. A reptilian council member hissed in confusion. But dreadworms have destroyed colonies. They've killed thousands. They're not pets. Neither were wolves, Dr. Moore countered. Earth's wolves were apex predators that could easily kill humans. But our ancestors saw past the danger. They saw potential companions. They offered food, shelter, and affection. And the wolves responded. She gestured at the screen showing Tommy and the dragon. This is the same thing, except it's happening in hours instead of generations. Another council member, an insectoid creature with compound eyes, leaned forward. But the dreadworm's behavior has changed. Our psychic readers show it's bonded to the child. That's the remarkable part, Dr. Moore said. It's not just the human pack bonding with the dragon. The dragon is bonding back. That child showed it something it's apparently never experienced before, genuine kindness with no ulterior motive, and the creature responded the only way it knew how. By adopting him. Vrek's translator struggled with the emotional complexity of his next statement. So what you're telling me is that a 6-year-old human child has accidentally domesticated the galaxy's most dangerous predator by giving it a kiss and some bandages? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Dr. Moore replied. And based on what I know about human children and their ability to bond with absolutely anything, this is just the beginning. Back in the docking bay, Tommy had convinced his parents to come closer. Lisa was crying, though whether from relief or fear or sheer disbelief she couldn't say. The dreadworm watched them carefully but didn't growl again. Tommy's presence seemed to be the only guarantee of safety they had. What do we call him? Lisa asked weakly, her mother's instinct already accepting that they couldn't separate her son from this creature. Tommy thought for a moment, then smiled. Buddy. His name is Buddy. The galaxy's most feared predator now had a name given by a child. Buddy the Dreadworm. Somewhere in the universe, fate was laughing. Ambassador Vrek updated his report to the Galactic Council with shaking hands. Humanity has just demonstrated an ability we didn't know existed. They can bond with anything. Even things that should kill them. Recommendation: never make humans our enemies. They might befriend something worse than dreadworms and turn it against us. The council unanimously approved his recommendation. Tommy asked his parents if Buddy could sleep in their quarters. The answer was probably going to be no, but after today Robert and Lisa Blake weren't sure about anything anymore. The footage spread across the galaxy faster than any news story in recorded history. Within hours, every civilized world had seen it. A human child kissing a void dreadworm. The dragon purring. The impossible friendship that should never have existed. And the reactions were exactly what you'd expect when the entire galaxy realizes they've fundamentally misunderstood something terrifying. On the Korthan homeworld, military commanders gathered in emergency sessions, reviewing the security footage frame by frame. General Thrace, a battle-hardened veteran of 3 wars, watched Tommy pat Buddy's snout for the 100th time and felt his scales prickle with unease. Run a search through the human databases, he ordered his intelligence officer. I want to know everything about Earth's apex predators and how humans interact with them. What came back made the entire command staff go silent. The report detailed creatures called bears that could tear a human apart with one swipe of their claws. Yet humans approached them in the wild to take photographs. Humans actually fed them sometimes. There were documented cases of humans raising bear cubs in their homes. Then there were the wolves. Massive pack hunters with jaws strong enough to crush bone. Earth's historical records showed humans not only domesticated them but turned them into thousands of different varieties of creatures they called dogs. These dogs lived in human homes, slept in human beds, and were treated as family members. The list went on. Venomous snakes kept in glass containers for fun. Spiders maintained as pets. Great white sharks that humans deliberately swam with in the ocean. Tigers, lions, crocodiles, all documented living in close proximity to humans who insisted on treating them as companions rather than threats. They have no fear response, Thrace's second-in-command whispered. Or it's broken somehow. They genuinely don't understand what should kill them. On Station Nexus 7, Tommy was teaching Buddy to play fetch. He'd found an old deactivated mining drone in a storage bay, about the size of a basketball. He'd throw it and Buddy would lumber after it, carefully pick it up in his massive jaws and bring it back. The dragon seemed to enjoy the game immensely, his tail wagging in a way that sent maintenance crews scrambling to secure loose equipment. Ambassador Vrek watched from a safe distance, still trying to process what his life had become. A week ago, his biggest concern was a trade dispute over mineral rights. Now he was watching a child play fetch with a creature that had, according to historical records, destroyed 17 colonies and killed over 30,000 beings. "He's teaching it tricks," Vrek muttered to Dr. Moore, who stood beside him. "Tricks? Like it's a domestic animal." "Because to Tommy it is," Dr. Moore explained. "He doesn't see a galaxy-destroying monster. He sees a big, hurt animal that needed a friend. And more importantly, the dreadworm responded to that perception. It's mirror behavior in a way. Tommy treats Buddy like a pet, so Buddy acts like a pet around Tommy." As if to prove her point, Tommy produced a chunk of refined metal from his pocket, something his dad had given him from the research lab. Buddy's eyes lit up, literally glowing brighter. Tommy held it up. "Sit," he commanded. The dreadworm sat. His haunches hit the docking bay floor with a thud that rattled equipment on the walls. Tommy grinned and tossed him the metal. Buddy caught it midair, crunched it between his teeth like candy, and made that rumbling purr sound again. "Good boy, Buddy." Tommy praised, and the dragon's tail wagged harder. Vrek felt something crack in his understanding of the universe. "We've been studying dreadworms for thousands of years. Battle tactics, evacuation protocols, defensive strategies. And this child has accomplished more in a week than all our research combined." The situation escalated when Buddy started bringing Tommy gifts. The first one appeared 3 days into their friendship. Tommy woke up in his family's quarters to find a destroyed cargo hauler sitting outside their door. Well, most of a destroyed cargo hauler. Buddy had apparently ripped it apart, kept the shiniest pieces, and arranged them in what could generously be called a pile. The dragon sat nearby, looking immensely proud of himself, his psychic signature broadcasting the emotional equivalent of, "Look what I brought you, aren't I good?" Tommy's reaction was to hug Buddy's snout and tell him he was the best dragon ever. Robert Blake's reaction was to file about 17 incident reports and then give up because what was he supposed to say? "My son's dragon destroyed private property while trying to give gifts?" The xenobiologists went into overdrive. Dr. Moore called in favors from colleagues across 3 systems to analyze the behavior. The conclusions were disturbing. "It's classic gift-giving behavior," she explained in her report to the council. "Cats bring dead mice to their owners. Dogs bring sticks or toys. The dreadworm is exhibiting the same pattern. It's bringing Tommy things it thinks are valuable, refined metals and interesting technology, seeking approval and reinforcing their bond." A Valkorian council member raised one of its 7 tentacles. "But this implies the creature views the human child as its pack leader. It's superior. How is this possible when the child is clearly prey-sized?" Dr. Moore pulled up more files from Earth's history. Size doesn't determine pack hierarchy and social bonding. It's about trust and emotional connection. Tommy established himself as a caregiver, someone who helps without expecting anything in return. To Buddy, Tommy isn't prey. He's family. The implications hit the council like a freight ship. If humans could do this with dreadworms, what else could they do it with? What other supposedly untamable, unreachable, undiplomatable species in the galaxy might respond to a human's illogical, fearless affection? Ambassador Vrek stood up, his decision made. "We need to establish protocols immediately. If humanity has this ability, we need to document it, understand it, and most importantly, make sure they're on our side." He paused, looking at the security feed showing Tommy riding on Buddy's back as the dragon carefully walked around the docking bay, moving with exaggerated caution to keep the child safe. "Because," Vrek continued quietly, "if humans can befriend dreadworms in a matter of days, I don't want to imagine what they could befriend given months or years. Or worse, what they could befriend if they decided we were their enemies." The council chamber fell silent. Every member was thinking the same thing. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy through superior weapons or advanced technology. They'd stumbled onto something far more powerful and far more terrifying. They'd weaponized love. And there was no defense against it. Back on Earth, the news was spreading too. Human children were watching the footage of Tommy and Buddy, their eyes lighting up with possibility. Parents across the planet felt a collective chill of dread as their kids started asking if they could have a space dragon too. The galaxy was changing, one unlikely friendship at a time. And everyone, human and alien alike, was starting to realize that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their intelligence or their adaptability. It was their absolute refusal to understand when something was supposed to be impossible. 6 months after Tommy kissed a void dreadworm and changed galactic history, Station Nexus 7 looked nothing like it used to. The docking bays had been expanded 3 times. Special reinforced platforms had been constructed. And most surprisingly, the station was now home to not one, not two, but 5 dreadworms, all of whom had shown up specifically because of the psychic broadcasts Buddy was sending out into space. Tommy had named them all. There was Buddy, of course, his first friend. Then came Starlight, a slightly smaller female with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Thunder arrived next, a massive male whose roar actually did sound like a thunderstorm. Then came Midnight and Comet, a bonded pair who apparently traveled together. The galaxy watched in a mixture of awe and terror as more humans arrived at the station. Not scientists or soldiers but families. Parents who'd seen the footage and thought maybe, just maybe, their own children could do what Tommy had done. The Galactic Council tried to regulate it, tried to control it, but humans being humans, they came anyway. 8-year-old Kelly Martinez was the second human to successfully bond with a dreadworm. Starlight had been circling the station for days, curious about the emotional broadcasts she was detecting but too cautious to land. Kelly had watched her through the observation windows, mesmerized by how the light caught on her scales. When Starlight finally landed, Kelly walked right up to her with a bag of refined titanium chunks she'd convinced the station engineers to give her. "Hi," she'd said simply. "You're really pretty. Do you want to be friends?" Starlight had lowered her head, sniffed the titanium and then gently headbutted Kelly in the chest, nearly knocking her over. Another bond formed just like that. 12-year-old Dylan Cooper bonded with Thunder after the massive dragon crash-landed on the station with a damaged leg. Dylan had grown up on a ranch in Montana, helping his parents with injured livestock. To him, Thunder was just another hurt animal that needed help, never mind that this particular animal could vaporize a small moon if it felt like it. The Galactic Council had no choice but to adapt. Ambassador Vrek, who'd aged considerably in the past 6 months based on the stress levels his medical scans showed, stood before the assembled representatives. "We are establishing the Human Dreadworm Diplomatic Corps," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd given up fighting the inevitable. "The program will be staffed by human children and supervised by xenobiologists, medical personnel and security teams." A counselor from the Dracian system raised an objection. "You want us to trust children with the galaxy's most dangerous predators?" "I want us to acknowledge reality," Vrek replied tiredly. "We've spent thousands of years treating dreadworms as natural disasters to be avoided. In 6 months, humans have proven they're actually intelligent, social creatures that were never properly approached. Would you prefer we ignore this discovery and go back to losing colonies?" The council had no answer to that. Tommy became the first official dragon ambassador, a title he thought was pretty cool even though he didn't entirely understand what it meant. His parents had accepted their new life with the resigned grace of people who'd realized arguing with the universe was pointless. Robert had actually started documenting Buddy's behavior for scientific journals, while Lisa worked with the station's engineers to design better medical facilities for dragon-sized patients. What surprised everyone, though, was what the dreadworms themselves brought to the table. Once they started actually communicating, it turned out they'd been observing the galaxy for eons. They knew things about deep space phenomena that no one else did. They'd seen stars being born and dying. They'd witnessed cosmic events that ships couldn't survive long enough to study. Buddy, through his bond with Tommy, started sharing information about a nebula region that ships avoided because sensors went haywire there. The dreadworms flew through it regularly. It wasn't dangerous, they explained through psychic impressions and patient attempts at communication. It was just a natural electromagnetic field that confused primitive sensors. Inside were resources that could revolutionize fuel production. Thunder, bonded with Dylan, revealed the location of derelict ancient ships floating in a section of space everyone assumed was empty. Archaeological finds that could rewrite galactic history. The dreadworms weren't monsters. They were just wildly misunderstood, and they'd never had a reason to explain themselves to creatures they viewed as either food or nuisances. Humans had given them that reason. Friendship. Companionship. Someone who cared whether they were hurt or lonely or scared. Within a year, 12 dreadworms had bonded with human handlers. The children ranged from 6 to 14 years old, and every single one treated their dragon companion like a beloved family member. They played games together, shared meals, even developed their own communication systems mixing psychic impressions with spoken words and hand gestures. Trade routes became infinitely safer. Dreadworms, it turned out, were highly territorial but would make exceptions for ships they recognized as friendly. Having a bonded pair patrolling a shipping lane reduced piracy to almost zero. No one was stupid enough to attack a cargo ship when there was even a chance a dreadworm might show up and decide you were threatening their territory. The galactic economy shifted. Resources previously unreachable became accessible. Scientific discoveries accelerated. And through it all, human children played with creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Dr. Moore presented her final report to the Galactic Council with a mixture of pride and amusement. Humanity's greatest export isn't technology or military power, she explained. It's our completely irrational, biologically questionable ability to look at the universe's most dangerous entities and think, I bet I could be friends with that. She pulled up footage of Tommy teaching Buddy to play a game that involved catching thrown objects. We pack bond with everything. It's not logical. It's not safe. It's probably an evolutionary quirk that should have killed us off long ago. But instead, it's become our greatest strength. Ambassador Vrek, who'd come to something resembling peace with the new reality, nodded slowly. Recommendation for the Council? Immediate alliance with humanity, Dr. Moore said without hesitation. And pray they never decide we're not worth befriending, because I guarantee you, there are worse things than dreadworms out there, and humans will absolutely try to make friends with them. The vote was unanimous. On Station Nexus 7, Tommy sat with Buddy watching ships come and go through the observation window. The dragon's massive head rested on the floor beside him, eyes half closed in contentment. Do you think there are other creatures out there like you? Tommy asked. Other animals everyone's scared of but are actually nice? Buddy's psychic impression suggested yes, definitely, probably lots of them. Tommy grinned. Cool. We should find them. Everyone deserves to have friends. Somewhere in the galaxy, a phase spider was going about its day, completely unaware that a 6-year-old human had just decided it deserved friendship too. The universe trembled slightly and waited to see what humanity would befriend next. Because if there was one thing the galaxy had learned, it was this. Never underestimate the power of a human child who decides something needs a hug. They'd already tamed dragons. What they'd do next was anyone's guess, but it would definitely be interesting. And terrifying. Mostly terrifying. But in a weirdly heartwarming way that made you question everything you thought you knew about survival and evolution and the nature of predator and prey relationships. The galaxy would never be the same. And honestly, that was probably for the best.